Welcome back to Tales by Hasiba. Throughout history, we have been conditioned to believe that conflicts are won by those with the biggest armies, the loudest voices, or the most overwhelming force. We build our lives around accumulating power, believing that if we are just strong enough, no one can touch us. But true mastery doesn't come from brute force. As the greatest strategists have always known, when you fight your enemy on their own terms, you are already playing a losing game. To truly win, you must think beyond power, the art of outsmarting your biggest enemy. Let's dive into a story of how a seemingly powerless strategist used wit instead of weapons to dismantle an unstoppable force. The rising threat centuries ago, in the sprawling valley of Valen, a peaceful city-state found itself under the shadow of General Vane. Vane was a warlord whose name alone struck terror into the hearts of kings. He commanded an iron legion, a massive, disciplined army that had never lost a single battle. His walls were thick, his swords were sharp, and his ambition was limitless. General Vane set his eyes on Valen. He sent a crisp, arrogant ultimatum to the city's council. Surrender your gates, pay half your treasury, and become my vassal, or my legion will reduce your city to ash by the next full moon. You have 3 days. Panic swept through Valen. The council members scrambled to the armory. They checked their meager reserves of guards, tested their rusted spears, and realized a horrifying truth. Their entire military might was barely a tenth of Vane's Iron Legion. If they fought back with physical power, they would be slaughtered in a single afternoon. Direct confrontation meant absolute annihilation. The strategist's perspective: amidst the chaos and weeping in the grand hall, one man remained entirely calm. His name was Julian, the city's chief archivist and advisor. While everyone else was looking at swords and shields, Julian was looking at human nature. Julian requested an audience with the panicked council. "You are trying to fight a mountain with a pebble," Julian told them quietly. "General Vane does not just want our city. He wants our submission, our fear, and our validation. If we match his power with our weakness, we die. But if we change the game, we might just survive." Julian understood a profound truth that Vane's power blinded him to. An empire built solely on intimidation is inherently fragile. It relies on the absolute predictability of its victims. If you break the script, the powerful lose their footing. With the council's reluctant blessing, Julian took no weapons with him. He packed only a single scroll, mounted a simple old horse, and rode straight out of the city gates toward the encampment of the Iron Legion. The psychological turn: when Julian arrived at the vast enemy camp, he didn't cower, nor did he demand an audience with a threat. Instead, he requested a formal conversation with General Vane, presenting himself not as an envoy of a defeated enemy, but as a curious scholar. Intrigued by the sheer audacity of an unarmed man walking into the lion's den, Vane had him brought to his tent. "You have 2 days left," Vane sneered, leaning over his map of conquest. "Have you come to beg for mercy on behalf of your foolish city?" Julian smiled calmly. "Not at all, General. I have actually come to congratulate you." Vane paused, blinking in confusion. "Congratulate me? For what?" "For achieving the pinnacle of power," Julian replied smoothly. "Everyone in the known world fears you. But that is precisely why I pity you. When a man becomes the most powerful warlord alive, he stops fighting his enemies and starts fighting his own generals. I looked at your supply lines, General. I noticed that your second-in-command, Commander Corvus, controls the grain shipments from the northern provinces. Tell me, if you were to fall in battle tomorrow, would Corvus mourn you, or would he quietly celebrate taking your crown?" The words hung in the heavy tent air like a poisoned dart. Vane's face hardened. Deep down, Vane already suspected Corvus's ambition, but Julian's words forced that paranoia out into the open. Julian didn't stop there. He leaned in closer. "A man with power trusts no one because he knows he acquired everything through force. Valen is not worth destroying, General. But if you spend tonight wondering whether your own inner circle is plotting your demise, you won't have time to look at our city walls. The collapse without a battle. Julian stood up, bowed respectfully, and walked out of the tent before Vane could summon his guards. He rode back to Valen under the moonlight. What happened next wasn't a heroic clash of swords or a bloody siege. It was something far more devastating. Back at the enemy camp, seeds of suspicion had been expertly planted. General Vane, consumed by paranoia, spent the entire night investigating his own commanders, questioning their loyalty, and placing his own loyal guards on high alert. Commander Corvus, sensing that his life was in immediate danger from a paranoid warlord, took preemptive action. By sunrise, a civil mutiny had erupted inside the Iron Legion's camp. Vane's own officers turned against him in a desperate struggle for self-preservation. By the time the full moon rose on the third day, the very day Vane was supposed to burn Valen to the ground, the great Iron Legion was tearing itself apart from the inside out, completely abandoning their campaign against the city. Not a single drop of Valen's blood was spilled. Julian didn't win by having a stronger army. He won because he understood that the greatest enemy is often defeated not by striking their armor, but by outsmarting their psychology. When you think beyond power, you realize that strategy, timing, and human weakness are far sharper than any sword. If you enjoyed this story of wit and strategy, let us know in the comments below. How would you have handled General Vane's threat? Don't forget to hit that like button. Share this video with someone who loves deep historical narratives, and subscribe to Tales by Hasiba for more mind-bending stories. Thank you for watching, and stay wise.